Hello, BookTube. I thought I would take you on a nice, calming tour of my stamp collection today, starting with the rather extensive section on the history of the textile industry. Uh, just kidding! The Man Booker Prize Longlist was announced! Ah! For those of you who may not be watching the news, the Man Booker Prize, one of the most prestigious literary awards in the world, just announced the long list of candidates to win the prize, and the shortlist comes out in September, I think. And until then, we have this long list to cogitate on. When I saw it, I immediately realized that it speaks directly to the tribal divisions in BookTube. There are some booktubers who don't care about new releases at all. They prowl the library, they prowl bookshops, they have discussions. And I watch a lot of their channels, and they're wonderful. And then there are some booktubers who, they'll read a new book if it's an author they particularly like, but it's not always or even often. And they spend the bulk of their time reading backlist as well, or specializing in genres or whatnot. And I watch a lot of their videos, and I love them too. And then there's a group of booktubers who are very much concerned with new releases. They're very much concerned with the industry, and they go to readings, and they go to signings, and they go to conventions, things like that. And even though I have an old brontosaurus who seldom puts his pants on and spends most of his time on this couch, I'm very much of that third group. I might not go to readings or signings or conventions or anything like that, but I keep a very close eye on the current state of the book industry, a very close eye. And I read, well, as those of you who know, if you watch this channel, I read mostly new releases. It's mostly what I do. It's not only my passion, it's also my job. So the Booker Longlist was right up my alley. And these 13 selections were whittled down from, I think, over 100. And the chair of the judging committee, in her comments about the short list, or the long list rather, said that it wasn't until they had compiled the long list that they realized how diverse it was. In response to which I quote the great Rumpole of the Bailey: "Pull the other one, it's got bells on it." but it doesn't matter, because this is a great list. Looking at it, I don't for a minute feel that there's any of the kind of diversity bingo tokenism going on here that has so infuriated me in the last couple of years in the literary world and everywhere else, but especially in the literary world, since it's the world I mostly inhabit. Instead, this is a really good list. There's a lot of good stuff on here. It's 13 books, and of these 13 books, I have read 11. There are 2 that I haven't read, and not only have I not read them, but I haven't heard anything about them either. I have a rather extensive network of spies in the industry, and no one at any point along that network in the last year has said to me, "Oh, there's this book, have you read it? Oh, there's this book, you really should read it." So I am going to treat those 2 books in the time-tested fashion that's so popular here in America. I'm going to pretend they don't exist. Now, of course, I'll have major egg on my face if one of them goes on to win, but I don't think that's going to happen. So I thought we'd just go down the list, and I'll bloviate a bit. So the list is this. It's 4321 by Paul Auster, Days Without End by Sebastian Barry, History of Wolves by Emily Friedman, Exit West by Mohsin Hamid, Solar Bones by Mike McCormick, Reservoir 13 by John Mcgregor, Elmet by Fiona Mosley, which is one of the 2 that I haven't read, The Ministry of Utmost Happiness by Arundhati Roy, Lincoln in the Bardo by George Saunders, Home Fire by Camilla Shamsi, which is the other of the 2 books that I haven't read, Autumn by Ali Smith, Swing Time by Zadie Smith, and The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. And I have a great number of thoughts on this list. And they break down in a lot of different ways, because you don't know what forces are at work. You don't know what factors the judges are weighing. I've mentioned on this channel before, especially in connection with literary awards, how much I wish sometimes that the judges could just get all the books stripped of any identification, just get in a brown paper bag, no title, no history, not even the publishing house, nothing, just the text. I often wonder I have in my more bitter, cynical moments wondered if any of our major literary lions would make the cut. If like this, the panel of judges this year for the Man Booker is very good. If you handed them 100 books just as text with every identification stripped off them, I wonder if any of these famous names would be on there. Not to say that they write bad books, but to say that I often wonder how much that's being taken into consideration. So I want to go over these books. We'll just go down the list. 4321 by Paul Auster is twice as long as his next longest book, and twice as tedious. This is an incredibly tedious author whose elevation to the status of literary lion has always mystified me. He barely has enough talent to be deeply buried in the mid-list, or to have no career at all. And yet here he is, being considered for every literary award in the world and being considered a great writer. Then we'll move on to Days Without End by Sebastian Grant, which is a very good book. Some of you may have seen a video about it by Eric Carl Anderson, who has a BookTube channel and also an indispensable book blog called The Lonesome Reader. And he did a BookTube video about his irritation with the marketing campaign for Days Without End, because Days Without End is a gay novel, and the marketers, the publisher, and the marketing firms don't seem to want to acknowledge that to a wider reading public, like that's going to hurt it. And I've noticed that the bullet descriptions almost everywhere for the Booker long list likewise scrub that identification right out. So I'm starting to share his irritation. When I first watched this video, I thought, I didn't even notice that. Maybe I'm getting cynical about this industry. But now I'm starting to share his irritation. What on earth is going on there in 2017? Then we've got The History of Wolves by Emily Friedman. It's her debut novel. It's a big deal for her to be on this list. I think it's quite good. I've praised it on this channel before. I didn't expect it to get this far. But still, I was glad to see it. Then we have Exit West by Mohsin Hamid. And this is just awful novel, just stupid on almost every page. It's with all sorts of buzzwords that give it its existence. This is an author who couldn't write a good book. If you gave him a how to write a good book manual and 10 years of trying time, and actually when you come to think about it, 10 years of trying time is just about what he has subjected the reading public to. Exit West was just awful. And unfortunately, I have to say the same thing about the next one, Solar Bones by Mike McGregor. This was a bit of a controversy, the smallest, the ripple of controversy that is the biggest you get with something like the Man Booker Prize, because this is not a new book. This is a couple of years old, and it was originally published by an Irish publishing house, and that is against the rules. So it wasn't up for consideration last year, and this year it is because it was republished by a British publishing house. I don't really understand the controversy, but unfortunately I found the book to be almost incredibly boring. just a tedious nightmare from beginning to end, and so impressed with itself that I kept wanting to take the author aside and say, you might want to consider another profession. And for an alternate opinion on that, you should look to the aforementioned Eric Carl Anderson thinks this book is beautiful. And in point of fairness, I should stress that when it comes to assessing contemporary fiction, he is a far more sensitive and intelligent reader than I am. So you have to take what I say with a grain of salt. I didn't think the book was worth the paper it was printed on. He is over the moon about it. So, it's going to be a question of which of us has pleased you in the past, I guess. I'm not meaning a rock'em sock'em kind of confrontation. It's just this is a very good example of when two experienced readers completely disagree about a book. I myself love it when that happens. Then there's Reservoir 13 by John Mcgregor. This is the only example on the list this year of of a kind of book that there were a lot of examples last year of a book where I don't understand what it's doing on the list. It's basically just a highfalutin crime thriller. I not to say that not to say that crime thrillers are the demi-monde, but they're usually not considered for snooty awards like this. I don't understand what would lead the judges to think that it was a Man Booker kind of book. Uh, and then I'm gonna skip Elmet by Fiona Mosley because it doesn't exist. Then we go on to The Ministry of Utmost Happiness by Arundhati Roy. All of the stories about the Booker long list are concentrating on this because it's her return to the list. She was on it and won for The God of Small Things. She's been gone for a long time. This novel has been a long time in the coming. She's been rather charming about that long gap of time when she does interviews. People ask her, what on earth took you so long to write this book? She'll say, well, these things, they take however long they take. uh, and the book is brilliant. Just brilliant. And the same thing is true of the next book, Lincoln and the Bardo by George Saunders, is also brilliant. I've mentioned it on this channel before. It's sad and wonderful. It's just the author's first novel and a standout effort. Then we have Home Fire by Camilla Shamsi, which I haven't read and don't believe exists. Then we have Autumn by Ali Smith. This is an author who's never really tripped my trigger. And I read Autumn when I first got a copy. I got an advance copy, and it just sat there on the page. I thought nothing of it. I thought it was well done, but it was just flat for me. And then weeks and weeks later, a friend of mine who does nothing but review contemporary fiction, much like Eric Carl Anderson, also an extremely good practitioner of reviewing contemporary fiction. It's a skill, and he has it to the utmost degree. He, in his own way, pointed out, I found a lot in it. I really did. And he didn't browbeat. Some people don't. Go figure. But I've learned to listen, as you do with any critic that you like, right? You learn to listen when they like something. And if you're a good reader, you will question your own certainty when a better judge praises something. So by the same token that I might go back to Solar Bones and try it again, I went back to Autumn by Ali Smith and found a lot more in it. I found a lot of stuff in it that I did not find in rereadings of a lot of these other books. And then Swing Time by Zadie Smith I thought was much like the Sebastian Barry. I thought it was rather overpraised in the press, and oh my God, did it get press? There was scarcely a review journal anywhere in the world that didn't give it the red carpet treatment in terms of space. Just amazing, an amazing amount of space. I didn't think that it warranted that. It struck me as tentative and muffled, oddly uncommitted on the part of the author, this author who usually throws herself into her books. I don't really know where those impressions come from, but I never for a minute felt interested or involved in it. And then the last book is The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead, which in the last year has won every award that hasn't been nailed down. I think it's extremely unlikely that Colson Whitehead's book will win the Man Booker for 2017, not only because of an extremely thematically similar novel won last year, but also because it would be two Americans in a row, and I don't foresee that happening. And I would like to think that other factors like that won't be involved either. I would like to think that the judges will concoct at least the short list on strictly on grounds of literary merit. I have the highest respect for this judging panel, so I'm very much hoping that they do. But of course, you can't talk about the Man Booker without making predictions now, can you? Well, I guess you can, because I think Eric Carl Anderson's already made a video about the Booker long list. I don't think he made any predictions, but maybe he did. One way or another, I certainly have predictions, and I want to make a group of them to sort of cover the spread, as it were. I want to make a worst case scenario, best case scenario, and then my own prediction. The worst case scenario is that the worst novel on this list wins for topical news-related reasons, and that would be Exit West by Mohsin Hamid, which is except I haven't read the two that I'm ignoring, but aside from those two, of the novels that I have read, the 11 that I have read, it's by far the worst book, and I would ordinarily think that would mean it would be safe from being picked, except that the 21st century is clearly shaping up to be the age of travesty. Here in the United States, we have white sheet wearing, openly professed segregationalist as the Attorney General. And in the White House administration, we have an actual Nazi. So we live in the age of travesty. It's entirely possible that this thing could win. That would be the worst case scenario. Best case scenario would be that the best book on this list wins. The two best novels on this list, by a fairly comfortable margin, are The Ministry of Utmost Happiness and Lincoln in the Bardo. And The Ministry of Utmost Happiness is significantly better than Lincoln in the Bardo. So the best case scenario would be that Ministry of Utmost Happiness wins, and who cares if Arundhati Roy has won it before, or how long it's taken her to write another book, or anything like that. Who cares? That would be the best case scenario, that it wins. And my prediction, and I'll keep in mind, all of this could be upset by the shortlist. The shortlist might not have any of these books, and I'll have to bloviate entirely new. But my prediction for what is going to not only be on the shortlist, but win the Man Booker for 2017 is Autumn by Ali Smith. I think that a lot of the judges probably had the extended double take that I did. It's a sneak up on you novel. You don't get a lot of it at first unless you're an exceptionally perceptive reader of contemporary fiction. I believe that if you're not that, if you're a good, strong reader, but usually read elsewhere, I think it would probably slip a lot past you and maybe surprise you on a second reading. And I'd be willing to bet that's happened to some of these judges. But we'll see. Those are my thoughts on the Man Booker long list, and you can be sure that when the short list comes out, we shall meet again. Thank you, BookTube, as always, for your patience.